Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Curtains Up, the podcast where we explore the art, the history, and the legacy of theater from every corner of the world. I'm your host, Rohan, and today we're putting on our masks, quite literally, as we dive into the vibrant, chaotic, and wildly influential world of Commedia dell'Arte. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as we dive in to the great artistic depths of Italian Renaissance. The evolution of Renaissance theater from medieval theater saw a shift from primarily religious, didactic plays performed in church settings to more secular, humanistic works. It was essentially moving away from the heavily moralistic themes of medieval drama towards a more diverse and human-centric approach to storytelling. The Renaissance saw the birth of modern European theater, especially in Italy, France, and England. We focus today on Renaissance theater in Italy, in the 14th to 17th century in this episode. Imagine a public square in 16th century Italy. The crowd gathers, children tug at their mothers' skirts, and then, bam! A troupe of masked performers bursts into view, juggling, shouting, and improvising tales full of trickery, love, and absurdity. This was Commedia dell'Arte, a revolutionary form of street theater that changed performance forever. Let's unmask its story. The term Commedia dell'Arte translates roughly to comedy of the profession. Those were nobles reciting poetry in palace courtyards. These are professional actors who lived, traveled, and performed together, bringing live theater to public squares, carnivals, and street corners. It began in the early 1500s, but its roots stretch further, drawing from Roman farce and medieval pageantry. Now, here's the twist. There were no formal scripts. Instead, actors worked from scenarios, bare-bones outlines of scenes with the basic plot points and character goals. Everything else, like the dialogue, the jokes, or the crowd interactions, they were entirely improvised. That's right, long before modern improv clubs or whose line is it anyway, Commedia's actors were mastering the art of thinking on their feet. They built scenes through a shared understanding of rhythm, and their chemistry with the ensemble was immaculate. This wasn't just chaotic guesswork. Each actor specialized in a stock character that they would play for years, sometimes even decades. They knew how their character would react in almost any situation. Add that to the toolkit of memorized lazzi, or comic routines such as pratfalls and wordplay, and you've got a perfectly rehearsed spontaneity. Commedia dell'Arte didn't just entertain, it laid the foundation for improvisational theater. It gave actors freedom to respond to the crowd, current events, or even a heckler in the back row. One of the trademarks of Commedia is its stock characters, and trust me, they are unforgettable. Let's meet a few of them together. One of the most well-known characters is Arlecchino, or more commonly known as Harlequin. He's a nimble, clever servant who's often poor and hungry, but always scheming. He wears a patchwork costume and carries a slapstick. And yes, this is the original slapstick. This character is one of the main characters who inspired slapstick comedy. Following that, there's the Pantalone, the greedy old merchant who's obsessed with money and controlling his daughter's love life. Think of him as the 16th century version of a grumpy CEO with control issues. Then, following that, there's the Il Dottore, or the Doctor. He's a pompous know-it-all from Bologna who spouts Latin and misuses big words. His purpose is to show those with a lot of intelligence, but not a lot of wisdom. Then there's Colombina, who's arguably the more popular version, or the more popular stock character that's widely well known. She's Arlecchino's witty love interest, cleverer than most men around her. One of the few female characters played by actual women, which was rare at the time. Then there's Il Capatino, who was a braggart soldier who talks big but runs at the first sign of danger. Basically, he's a parody of toxic masculinity in armor. Each actor specialized in one role for their entire career. They developed incredible mastery over that character's voice, walk, gestures, and of course, their mask. Speaking of masks, Commedia was known for its half masks, which covered only part of the face so actors could still speak and emote. But if you couldn't use facial expressions, how did you act? With your body. Commedia actors trained in exaggerated physicality, mime, and acrobatics. Each character had their own signature walk, their gesture patterns, their postures, their poses. It was practically choreography. This intense stylization influenced everything, from pantomime to clowning to most types of slapsticks you see in modern day. Yep, Charlie Chaplin owes a thing or two to Arlecchino. By the late 16th and early 17th century, Commedia troupes were touring France, Spain, and beyond. By the late 16th and early 17th centuries, Commedia troupes were touring France, Spain, and beyond. In fact, Commedia troupes heavily influenced Molière's plays in France, the evolution of Punch and Judy in England, and even some early Shakespearean characters, like the Fool or Falstaff. So, in the early 20th century, it inspired performers like Jacques Lecoq, Dario Fo, and even modern improv theater groups. And in case you're wondering, yes, that modern theater trope of love triangle involving a servant who's smarter than the master is completely stolen from Commedia. Although Commedia was an important art form for being unique in the sense that it was mostly improv, one of the most important productions to come out of the development of Commedia was a show called The Servant of Two Masters, or Il Servitore di Due Padroni. This is one of the most famous examples of Commedia dell'Arte. The play was written by Carlo Goldoni in 1746. And while the play itself was written in a more scripted form compared to traditional commedia, it still incorporates many key elements of the style. Some of the key characteristics of The Servant of Two Masters is the heavy usage of stock characters such as Harlequin and Pantalone, and even the innamorati, or the lovers. And another example of a key characteristic was physical comedy and slapstick. True to Commedia, it includes slapstick humor, mistaken identities, and exaggerated physical movements that we all know and love today. This plot revolves around a servant, Truffaldino, a clever but bumbling servant who attempts to serve two masters at the same time without either of them knowing. This leads to a series of misunderstandings and chaos. Like I said, this plot is full of misunderstandings, mistaken identities, and chaotic situations. One of Truffaldino's masters, Beatrice, is disguised as her dead brother searching for her lover Florindo. Meanwhile, her other master is Florindo, who doesn't know Beatrice is looking for him. Truffaldino's efforts to juggle his duties lead to comedic confusion, but eventually all the secrets are revealed and the play ends in a joyful resolution with lovers united. This play is known for its physical humor, fast-paced dialogue, and elements of improvisation typical of Commedia dell'Arte. While this play modernized some aspects of Commedia, it remains a key example of how the traditional elements of the art form can be blended with a more narrative-driven structure. And along with that, this is one of the main plays to show how improvisation can add so much to a play. So you may be wondering, why are we talking about Commedia dell'Arte today then? That's because it democratized theater. It brought it to the streets. It made improvisation and physicality central to performance. You can't think of a show without improv nowadays, right? The show is not always going to be the same. There will be differences upon performances of the show. And to make those shows work, to make the ensemble understand each other, there needs to be that improv. And all of this originated from Commedia dell'Arte. Because its archetypes still live on in sitcoms, cartoons, sketch comedy, and many different types of shows. Just think about it. The sarcastic butler in a British comedy? That's Columbina. Or the overconfident jock who folds under pressure? That's Il Cappuccino. And what about the scheming intern who's trying to outsmart the CEO? The rookie underdog trying to overpower the big bad CEO? That's Harlequin versus Pantalone. In a way, Commedia is still with us, just without the tights and masks most of the time. And that's it for today's episode of Curtains Up. If you enjoyed this dive into the world of Commedia dell'Arte, don't worry. In the next upcoming weeks, I'll be uploading a few conversations I had with some important guest speakers who gave me a lot more information on Commedia dell'Arte. And I hope that that information can be as informative to you as it was to me. If you enjoyed this dive as well, be sure to subscribe, share this episode with your fellow theater lovers, and leave us a review. It helps the show reach more curious minds like yours. Until then, stay dramatic and stay curious. Curtains up.